burned for me. Thank you for listening to the story of a young, lonely, and unfortunate girl.
Ahmed. Ahmed has been actively advocating for children's rights in Afghanistan and started Fridays for Future in Afghanistan. And because of that, he has received many threats from the Taliban. Ahmed says, I lived in Kabul all my life, born in the province of Panjshir. We had bittersweet days in Kabul, good memories of marches and gathering with friends, and bitter memories of losing our best friends to war and terror. But we had a hope to live for our plans and goals, big and small. When we used to march, it was hard and worrying that something bad would happen to all of us. We had future strategies and plans. We were planning the future of Fridays for Future Afghanistan. But when the Taliban came, the government collapsed once and for all. We had to forget our plans, our dreams, our works, our goals. Our only struggle became our survival and how to get out of Afghanistan. We have thousands of memories and we have had our future planned. We are now alienated from them at our homeland. Could you imagine this for a moment? When we were being evacuated, we felt like waiting at the end of the world. And we accepted all the danger and our fate. And now we're worried and anxious for our families and friends. We are aware of the terrible and ugly events there at every moment.
Madina has been advocating for climate justice for several years now. She now lives safely in Berlin and is trying to pursue her dreams. She's saying, I always wanted to be strong like a man because of my childhood. I grew up like a man because this country does not value girls and women. Doing workshops for women and children was not easy for me. I am a woman living in a country that has had its people burning and dying due to the politics of another country. But recently the country had progressed. Afghanistan is in need of environmental action because of the bad consequences of climate change, such as water scarcity. As a young environmental activist, I urge the whole world to pay attention because Afghanistan will be a dangerous country in the future. I was expelled by the Taliban by force, and there was no hope for me to continue my education. Members of Fridays for Future like myself wish for a day where there is no war in the world and people do not burn because of the policies of other countries.
We are worried about Camila, Ahmed, and Madina's families, as well as other people who have been evacuated to Pakistan. There is a possibility that if we remain unsuccessful in finding a country for them where they can be resettled, that the Pakistani government would deport them back to Afghanistan.
And now we are here because we need your support. We need you all to help us raise funds to keep them safe and to evacuate more people. We need you to ask your governments to start humanitarian programs for activists and other people who are on the Taliban's wanted list. We need to speak about this everywhere, as long as Camila, Ahmad, Madina and the rest cannot be here. Imagine these would be European climate activists. No environmental organization would forget about them so quickly. FFF Afghanistan has no representation at this conference, neither at this climate strike. Let us fight together to leave no one behind.
Leave no one behind!
We were super excited to platform those voices, especially because in Glasgow we have a history of supporting the refugees, especially, some of you will remember, on Kenmure Street when we prevented a family being deported. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it clear. Refugees are welcome here.
Refugees are welcome here.
Okay. Up next we have Fraser Stewart, who is a researcher and something else that I forgot, activist. He researches at Strathclyde Uni, just up the road. So, Fraser.
must say that it's an absolute privilege to be here with the speakers that are on the bill today. I come from a working class community here in Scotland, the kind of community that they say cannot care about the climate crisis. They tell us that climate is the concern of the lovey middle classes and angry young people like you. They insist that working class people couldn't possibly care about the planet that they live on or the other people who live here. But this could not be further from the truth, because there are people everywhere, trust me, from the suburbs to the schemes, who are worried and raging about the climate crisis. People everywhere who are outraged at the loss and damage and destruction being caused by our leaders' lack of action. People everywhere who call bullshit on governments who say that they cannot afford to end poverty or vaccine apartheid or climate chaos while funneling billions into fossil fuels everywhere. People everywhere who see through the hypocrisy of governments claiming to be climate leaders on one hand and then opening new oil fields and coal mines with the other. People everywhere who know that climate change has already devastated millions of most affected people around the world, and who know that, like everything, it is those with the least means and the least responsibility who will be hit the hardest and forced to clean up the mess. The temperature is rising from the suburbs to the schemes, I promise you that. They say around here that climate's only a concern for folk who don't have to worry about the real issues of poverty and inequality every day. But these are not separate issues, because the climate crisis is driven by exactly the same things that drive poverty and inequalities the world over, and it makes those problems worse. It is driven by the same governments and bosses who think that their profit and growth is worth more than lives and livelihoods and a livable planet. By the same broken economic system that demands the exploitation of marginalised people and working class people everywhere, that exploits the planet itself for the sake of personal financial gain, and a crisis that hits those already fighting for equity and dignity and respect, especially those women and people of colour in the global south, while those with most power and responsibility never have to feel a thing. This is not just a